So I've been working really hard on YouTube the past few weeks with just like holiday stuff and saving up money for the next steps in my van life build. And I've just been feeling super burned out. So I thought that we would take a break from some of the review content and talk about something really silly. So for today, I have a very interesting story that happened back in the summer about the time that I tried to eat weed edibles, but weed edibles ended up eating me. And basically, like, I hadn't smoked or anything for probably 2 or 3 years, I want to say. I used to smoke a lot in college and when I was working as a copywriter. But then I just kind of like quit, and I don't know. I wasn't that interested in like going back to it for whatever reason. But I did this video called Van Life Day One, where essentially I had my van, my Ford Transit van, but I hadn't built it out, you know. So I really wanted to have this like day where I did all the van life things I wanted to do, right? And one of the things I wanted to do was play video games, and I figured that it would be fun to like make some editables, you know, because I hadn't gotten high in like, you know, like I said, 3 or 4 years, and I just been working so hard on YouTube that I hadn't had time, honestly, like even if I had been interested in it. So it seemed like a fun thing to do, and cannabis is legal for recreational use in New York now. So I actually just like went to a dispensary the day of, and it was a really weird experience. You know, I hadn't been in a dispensary before, but there's like a cop outside, and then you see people like coming out of the dispensary like with marijuana, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just so weird, you know. I feel like I've been in a time capsule since the last time I got like any weed or anything. I used to buy like $20 dime bags from some like sketchy person in high school or whatever. But anyways, so I go in there and they're kind of like run over. They really don't have much in stock. And one of the few things that they had was this indica strain. It was super potent. It was like 22% THC or something. But I don't know. I didn't really have any plans to do anything else with it other than just this one time. So I only wanted to buy a small portion, but they didn't have small portions. The ounce was like, or a quarter was the smallest portion that you could buy. So anyways, I'm like, whatever. And I buy it and I walk out past the cop and just like give him the eyes, and he just looks at me with this bored expression on his face. Just so bizarre. But anyways, I come home and I'm still living at my mom's house, FYI, if you don't know. So this is all kind of happening on the DL because way back when, in I think it was like the second year of college when I started to smoke, and I bought a bong, and she like found it and then she smashed it and wrote a note to me, and it was like a whole huge drama, and then she kind of got over it, but still I don't think she would have liked it. So anyways, you know, I had to be stealthy, and I looked up a recipe for edibles, and I decided to make it in the Instapot, which actually worked really well. I'd recommend it if you want to make edibles. But how it works is you get a little canning jar, you put the cannabis in there, and then you heat it for like 45 minutes in the pressure cooker, and then you do that again with the oil. However, there were several problems in the process. The first one was that I wasn't really taking into consideration how strong the strain was that I had purchased. So that was mistake number one. And then mistake number two was because I wasn't really planning on making edibles with this, and you know, I couldn't really keep it in the fridge because it like reeks, you know. So I was just gonna like throw it away, or I don't know, give it to a friend or something when I was done with it. But I decided to use half the oil that you would normally use because I was like, what am I, you know, it's just a waste of oil. And it said online that you could, you know, half the oil and it'd be fine. It would just be, you know, more potent. So instead of half a cup, I used fourth a cup of avocado oil. And so I went through the second part of, you know, you put the oil in with the cannabis, and then you screw the top on, and you pressure cook again for like 45 minutes. So it's getting really late because I've done a lot of filming this day for my Van Life Day One video. And so I'm like running out of time. And so I take my first, I think it was like a quarter teaspoon or a half teaspoon, I'm forgetting now, but whatever the like lowest dose recommended was, I took that. And you know, I was just like, ate the oil, and then I went on a walk for 45 minutes because I thought that, you know, might kick in. I went to the grocery store, bought some stuff for dinner, some like, you know, yummy, I think they were like coconut cookies or something like that, good munchy food. But anyways, I come back and I'm just not feeling anything. And I'm like, well, maybe my tolerance is like reset back to zero. Because sometimes when you like consume cannabis for the first time, it doesn't really have any effect on you. So I thought that might be what was going on, right? And so I wait another 45 minutes just to be sure. And there's still just like nothing, I'm just completely stone cold sober. So I was like, well, this blows, this is supposed to be one of the main things about this van life, day one video is that I'm just gonna like get high and silly and play, video games in the van, Oblivion. And so I was like, well, screw it. I'll just take another dose. It's not that much. It's only like a quarter teaspoon or whatever it was. So I take another dose and, still nothing is happening. Like 45 minutes go by and I'm kind of wrapping up filming the rest of the stuff for my video. Like the cooking scene and whatnot. And then I'm like, dancing around in the van and listening to music. And then I'm like setting up the Xbox. And as I finished setting up the Xbox, I could feel a little something, something, a little bit of tingle, a little bit of buzz going on. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so I started playing video games, and within I would say about 15 minutes of that, I started to get quite high, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, this is going pretty well. I'm getting silly. I'm having some commentary with the I don't know, Oblivion creatures that I'm poorly slaying or struggling to slay. But anyways, I finish filming the video game portion, and I don't know. It was kind of disappointing, to be quite honest with you. I thought it would be more fun, but I found video games to be really boring, both sober and as I started to kind of get my buzz on. But anyways, after that, I started to get really high, like to the point where I would get this high normally, I would just like fall asleep. I used to, when I was a copywriter in New Jersey, I would go out to this guy's basement and we would play like Grateful Dead or classic rock and smoke a bunch of weed. And then I'd take the train home and I would just like fall asleep in bed. And that would be the end of it. And I'd wake up the next day feeling fine. So I thought, okay, maybe that's what I'll do. I just got into bed. I thought, I'll have a nice like sleepy time. But that is not what happened at all. Like, instead of me just drifting off to sleep and getting really sleepy, my brain started to just like go into hyperdrive. I was just so goddamn high that I couldn't sleep. I was starting to like spin, I was starting to really not like it. And my hope had been that I was just going to fall asleep, maybe have some crazy nightmares, but I was just completely unable to sleep. And it was strange because it was like an indica strain, so I thought this is supposed to be like a body high, not like coked out of my mind, which was kind of what the experience was turning into, right? So I would say another probably half an hour goes by, and then I start to feel something else, like another wave on top of this already really strong wave. And I'm thinking back to myself, and then I'm realizing, like, oh shit, like, first of all, this is incredibly strong, like, probably much stronger than anything I've ever consumed in my whole life. And then secondly, I forgot about the whole having the oil thing. So I actually took 2 doses more than I meant to. And then because I thought it wasn't working, I took another dose, which is actually 4 doses because of how it was, cut with less oil. And I'm like, oh shit, like I'm in like serious trouble. And at this point, it was like not funny anymore. It was to the point where I think I probably was approaching like if I had taken a heroic dose of psychedelics, maybe not quite that strong, but very, very close. And this weed was like nothing I had ever tried before in the worst possible way. So anyways, I'm just lying in bed, just hoping to God that I can fall asleep, because now my head is spinning. I'm just like, I can't even close my eyes because I'm just seeing like rapid fire, just like crazy ass visuals changing every 2 seconds. And I feel like every time I close my eyes, I'm going to puke, because it's like being on 20 different roller coasters at once and you're going like upside down and sideways. It's not fun. So I turned the light on just to kind of like anchor myself, in this experience and not just completely spin out. But at this point, I started getting even more high, which I honestly was like scared for my life at this point, or I was scared for my like long-term mental health because I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually going to fry myself. And there's nothing you can do about it because you've already taken the edibles. This is the bad thing about edibles is that if you take too much, you're just like fucked. You're in for the ride and you can't get off. So anyways, at this point, I actually start losing some of my senses and other senses are getting so strong it is completely overwhelming. Like as I'm breathing in oxygen, not only can I feel it coming into my nose, which you would normally feel, and maybe your throat a little bit, but I can feel the air moving throughout my entire body, like entering my lungs, being absorbed by my lungs. Like this is stuff that you're not supposed to feel, right? Like if you could feel all these things all the time in terms of like all the sensations in your body, you would just go insane because it's too much information, right? This is why your body kind of shuts it down and filters things out. But that was really crazy. And then the other crazy thing that happened was that I started perceiving reality at a lower frame rate. So like if you think that about it, like movies oftentimes will be shot at like 24 frames per second or something, maybe 60 frames, if it's really high, but I was perceiving reality in probably around 3 frames per second. So, like, what that would be like is imagine you're watching my hand move around the frame, right? And it looks smooth because there's only so many frames, per second that your eye can perceive. But what was actually happening is my hand would be here, and then it would be here, and then suddenly it'd be here. And so, like, I couldn't coordinate myself because there was no fluidity in my movements, in my vision. And it's kind of funny because like people who have watched my channel know that I'm really big on e-ink technology, which has a very slow refresh rate. It's not quite that slow, but it can be on, something like the Kindle where they're trying to maximize like the quality, of the picture. So it refreshes like every few seconds and it's very slow, but it was like that. My vision was just like so I'm just like trying to grab my water bottle because I'm getting really dehydrated and I can't I can't grab it. I'm like shooting past it and then I'm knocking it over. And then the worst part was that I had to pee. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, this was probably, I don't know, midnight or something. And I'm just, like when you get really high, you can get paranoid. And so I'm thinking like, um, well, first of all, I was worried about like having to go to the hospital or something, actually having to tell my mom or, someone that this was happening to me, which I really didn't want to have to do. So I was hoping that it was just gonna like peak and then go down. But anyways, I had to pee and I had nothing to pee in, so I had to exit the van, and I was really terrified about making noise because I thought I was gonna wake the neighbors up and just like, I don't know, see this like incredibly high Andrew stumbling around the yard. So but I I navigate myself out into the backyard, and God, somehow I managed to like pee out in the woods without alerting my presence to the entire neighborhood. I like my worst fear was that one of my neighbors was gonna like turn on the backlights like a spotlight, and here I'd be just stumbling around at 3 frames per second. But I made it back. Mission accomplished. I was still feeling incredibly sick and dizzy and spinning and oh yeah. So I get back in the van, and then I think that was just about the most high that I was the entire experience. Certainly the most high I've ever been in my entire life. And the reason that I said it was basically like a heroic dose is because at this point I just kind of like crashed into the bed, and then I closed my eyes because I was just exhausted at this time. My brain had just been going like crazy for hours, and all that I could perceive was that I had become the letter M. Like I was literally like, this is all I was in the entire world, was like the letter M. That like Andrew had ceased to exist as an entity, and I was just like this letter flying through space, so my like ego was completely obliterated. But yeah, after that, things started to calm down a little bit, enough that I was able to go sleep for like an hour at a time. And this went on basically the whole night. It was like the longest night of my entire freaking life. I would just wake up about, I mean, I would have like crazy nightmares, but then I would wake up and I would have like nightmares. My brain would still be like, so I probably slept until maybe 10 o'clock, on and off. And then I get this knock on the van, and I'm just like, "Grah." I don't even know where I am. I'm still incredibly high at 10 a.m. the next morning, and it's my mom. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is my worst freaking nightmare. So I'm just like stumbling around the van. My voice is so hoarse. I'm like, I'm coming. I'm coming. And I just struggling to even find the keys. Like, I can't even unlock the van because I don't know where my keys are, and it takes me probably 5 minutes to find my keys. And the whole time, my mom is just freaking out. She's like, "Why haven't you gotten out of bed yet? What's wrong? What's going on?" So I finally opened the cargo door over there, and I'm like, "Oh, what is it?" And she's like, "It's 10 a.m. Why haven't you gotten out of bed?" And I don't know if she knew that I was incredibly high still, but I guess not, because I hadn't smoked in such a long time, so I guess it didn't even enter her mind. I don't know what she thought. Maybe she just thought I stayed up really late. But I felt sick the rest of the day, and overall, it was just a terrible, terrible experience. I think that's probably the last time that I ever want any weed ever again in my entire life. And that's not to say that like you can't have better experiences than that, with cannabis, but I don't know. It was just boring. I used to really enjoy smoking, and I guess I just don't anymore. I think the moral of the story really is that I enjoy being sober. And once you've had an experience like that, just a completely obliterating, what would you call it? Grueling experience, where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if your mental health is going to be fried for the rest of your life, and you feel sick, and you don't have a grasp on reality. Like, after you have one of those experiences, you really appreciate like just being sober, just like how amazing it is that we have this brain that can like interpret, with decent accuracy what's going on in the world, and that we are moving at least 60 frames per second and not just going like jit 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 jit. I mean, imagine, the thing that really scares me is like, what if this had been permanent? Because sometimes you do hear about people having permanent trips, and I'm like, what if I had to live the rest of my life at 3 frames per second? What if I had become a literal e-ink monitor, an e-ink human being? Like, what if I had ended up only being able to see the world in black and white at 3 frames per second? Oh man, it scares me. So I was really lucky to get through that experience without any negative side effects. I guess that's the good thing about cannabis, is that you can take a lot, like way more than you should, and get out of the experience okay. Not to say that everyone would. I mean, some people have serious, life-altering mental breakdowns and whatever. But like, if that had been alcohol and I had taken 4 times as much, as I meant to drink, like, I would be in the hospital or dead for sure. But anyways, not interested in never partaking in marijuana again. And I just really appreciating being sober high. I like going out for walks and runs and climbing trees, and I don't know, I just appreciate the sharpness. It's like living life in high def, and when you're in college, it's fun to like get fucked up and see the world, and through a haze. But at a certain point, like, you've just had enough. You're not going to get anything else out of it really, and the only way that you're ever going to have more interesting experiences is in life is by going out in nature and meeting people and playing music and writing and, I don't know, making goofy YouTube videos and all that good stuff. So anyways, that's my little fun story about the time that I was eaten by edibles. But I don't know if you have an interesting psychedelics or drug story, or any time you are extremely out of pocket. Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to hear other goofy stories like this, let me know about that too. And yeah, take care. Stay warm out there. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.